Excellent. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. I hope you're having a wonderful time at SQL Bits. I've now gone over the 8 seconds I had yesterday when I practiced, and this talk was 19 minutes and 52 seconds, so I'm going to have to talk a bit faster. No, I'm joking. My name is James, and we are going to talk about Power BI design and what we could possibly do to make our reports better, or look better. So the first thing, just a quick introduction slide. Design is a subjective topic. No one design is ever perfect. No one design will ever satisfy everyone's needs or requirements. So some of the things I'm going to show you today, you may not agree with. You may not even think they look better. You may think, but you've just made your report look worse. Design is subjective. I'm going to give you things that you can think about, not necessarily things you have to do which will automatically improve your reports. Sort of touched on that. One of the problems with design is there is no one clear endpoint. You can never say, oh, my design is perfect, I am now done. It is a constantly evolving process. Someone may notice something or give you a piece of advice that may make your report go, okay, you know, I could tweak X or Y to make this report more user-friendly. But one of the massive problems is that design is often thought of as less important, and this means that we sometimes end up as it being an afterthought. We spend so much time building our models, so much time cleaning our data, that by the time we finally are ready to show something, we rush together a design, we give it to a user with no thought or very little thought. So I'm going to hopefully give you just a couple of things we can touch on, think about to make reports better, more useful, and satisfy more business needs. So in this talk, as I've sort of mentioned, this is about things you can do. This is not things you must do, or you will definitely make your reports better. Hopefully, I'll plant some seeds and you can learn a little bit from that. I'm not really going to show you how to do any of these things. We have 20 minutes. It is not enough time to touch on basically any of these topics. I'm going to just tell you what they are and maybe show you an example, but I'm not going to necessarily show you how to do them in Power BI. I do have a whole bunch of links on my blog. I'll post the blog tonight. I haven't actually posted the blog post yet, but I do have a whole series of links for this talk, which gives you videos on how to do various things, articles from design companies about why certain things are important, strategies, all those kinds of things. So if you want deeper information, that's definitely a place to go and get them. And then I won't be taking any questions because of the short time frame in this session, but I will hang out in Community Corner basically in the middle for the rest of the day. If anyone wants me, come find me. I'm very happy to talk about this or any other topic. And if you want, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up here, whatever, I'm available. All right, let's go. So the 5 things we're going to talk about today are using a grid layout, maximizing real estate, how to use colors, thinking about your audience, and then a couple of finishing touches. So we'll start there with grid layout. Now, a grid layout is a pretty intuitive thing, but and I always think the best example is if you think of the Power BI dashboard service, where you've got basically predefined sizes that you can make your visuals. You can make them 1 by 1, 1 by 2, 2 by 1, 2 by 2, and I find that this, for me, is the most scientific thing that I can tell people about report design. Design is hard. Design is an entire speciality all by itself. But by using a grid design, you will almost always improve the look and feel of your reports just very simply. I'm going to show you an example very shortly. But let's just talk about pros. One of the pros about grid theory, it's a left brain thing. It's a scientific, it's a scientific approach. You're not relying on art or thinking about how that side of which suits most of us as scientists. The second thing is it's less tweaking. What I mean by that is if you define, I can either make this block 2 by 1 or 1 by 2 or 2 by 2. It doesn't mean, oh, if I move this 10 pixels and then that 10 pixels and then this thing changes size or whatever, you're choosing, I'm either making it this wide or this wide, and that's it. Those are my options. So it gives you it's less flexible, which means that you're less scope for errors impacting other things, okay? And because of that, it's increased efficiency. It's much quicker to decide on what you're going to do. I'm either making this one thing bigger or smaller, that's it. And because of that, it is guaranteed to look professional. That doesn't necessarily mean it looks beautiful. It will look professional, okay? On the negative side, it can look a little bit boxy or a little bit samey. And you'll see an example now, and you can decide whether you like it or not. And with the whole less layout tweaking thing, it does become less flexible. If you have one long title that is just too long to fit in whatever size you've decided on, you can't just make that slightly bigger. You have to commit to using an entire extra block or changing a title or changing a font size or something to fit into what you've decided. So let's look at an example. Okay, here's a very basic report that I kind of threw together. I decided that since we're talking board games, D&D at SQL Bits, I'd use some board games data in my demo. And I just took some data here and thought of the kind of questions people would like to ask. How many games are in my data set? What number of these are ratings submitted to Board Game Geek? How many ratings have we got overall? How many comments have we had? And then split it up into some sections and some queries and things like that. Now, everything has got pretty well-defined borders here, and I've changed the background color so that you can actually see where visuals start and end. But you can see that I didn't focus on layout at all here. So all I did was I then went, okay, I'm going to take those exact same visuals and I'm going to make sure that they format into sets of boxes. And in this case, this is a 16 by 9, a widescreen report. I chose to do exactly that, 16 boxes by 9 in my grid. So I essentially made a grid in my mind of 16 by 9, and then I chose what to do. And I took the exact same report with the exact same visuals, and that's what we come up with. So just if we go backwards to there, you can see it's a fairly big difference without actually having changed very much, okay? There are two main concepts with grid theory. And with grid theory, the two things that we really care about are what we call gutters, which is the white space between visuals, and margins, which is the white space around the outside of your report. We use these to ensure that our reports or our visuals don't bleed into each other, so there's a clear separation. And then when we're talking a little bit later about finishing touches, we'll talk about how you can use other elements to combine various visuals into this is one coherent idea versus other things. Okay, so really the simplicity here is you just devise a grid in your head, and then you actually use pixel-based placement to make sure that your visuals are exactly where you want them and exactly the right sizes. Okay, fairly simple. Let's move on to the second thing. Okay, our second question here is about maximizing real estate. Now, this is the only time where I'm actually going to show you things in Power BI rather than choices that you're making. So in terms of maximizing real estate, what we're really looking for is making things easier to read and really easier to consume for a user. So the first thing is that the bigger a visual is, the easier it is to use and the more value it can add to a user. I'll show you an example when we go back there. Fewer visuals, fewer distractions. If you know you're only looking at 3 or 4 things on a report, you are almost always likely to get to the correct answer quicker. There are alternative strategies we can have. If I want to be able to answer 4 or 5 questions on one report and I can't do them without 4 or 5 visuals, there are strategies, and we'll look at 2 of them now. But the difficulty with this is it's often hard to convince your stakeholders. How many times do we go to a stakeholder and you go, I don't want to put these 3 visuals on my report, it'll become too difficult, too cluttered, and they go, oh, but all of these are important to business and we have to have them. So this is a difficult conversation. You as a designer have to weigh up business needs, business requirements with what you think adds the most value. And then sort of carrying on from that is that if you don't have all your visuals shown by default, or if you have to do something to answer certain questions, you don't have that view of everything is answered all at once by your report. So again, these are compromises. Everything in IT is a compromise. Design is no different. You have to make compromises occasionally to service the needs and decide on what is most important. So let's go back into our report. Same report, sorry. Why is PowerPoint being funny now? Sorry. I think I'm the first person ever to try and do a demo of Power BI inside of PowerPoint, and I've been having conversations with the PowerPoint team the whole day about various things that have been causing issues. So if we talk about maximizing space here, there are a couple of strategies we can take, okay? And this is what we're going to end up with. Now, some of these strategies are pretty obvious and are done for you almost by default by Power BI. I actually had to make them incorrect to show you them, but some of them are not so obvious. So let's just talk through them quickly. The first thing, these three numbers here. Previously, I had the full numbers for these very large numbers. They do not add value. So the automatic formatting or the ability of Power BI to choose decimal points and to format your numbers into more manageable, consumable numbers, big space saver, and it also makes it more impactful. Okay, so that's the very first thing, our reducing the precision. The second thing is over here, I don't know if you can sort of visualize the previous report, we had two different graphs. And what I've done there is I've put the two graphs, I've made them both bigger, slightly, and created two buttons with bookmarks that allow me to see or not see them. So just going to pop into that actual report. So this is what it looked like when we started. And if we now go to, report after maximize real estate, we go to version 3. Oh, come on. Sorry, internet a little bit slow. But we have this situation where I can change my graph. Did that change? It's a bit scary. Sorry. I don't know if that's the internet or if I've done something wrong. Okay, sorry. This is why we keep them open in all systems all at once. Back to that graph. Again, the same thing. I swear I practiced this like 10 times and I had no issues. Okay, I'm gonna have to ask you to trust me. No, it's not working. I don't know what's going on. Sorry. This might be related to my other issues that I had with PowerPoint. Okay, but essentially I had those two graphs. I made them both bigger, overlaid them with each other, and then put in a button that allowed me to switch between put two bookmarks that showed one or the other. So if we go back to our PowerPoint, sorry about that. And then the last thing I've done here is I've actually taken 6 graphs and combined them into one by using the new feature that was released last year in Power BI called field visuals or field parameters. And what I've done here is I've basically allowed the user to change this report by choosing a specific value. So if you were to go into the report and choose show me this report by designer, oh, nothing. It'll come. It's just really slow. There, you would be able to change this report. So what that gives you is basically, oh, that hasn't even changed the report yet. I'm sorry. Oh, there it came. Very, very slow. I apologize for that. But basically, it gives you the ability to give people the flexibility to answer lots of questions without having to have lots of visuals on one report all at once. And the problem with small visuals and having lots of small, I had 6 graphs in this case, which answered 6 questions. Now, the way I've set it up here, I've actually given you the ability to answer, I think, 14 questions. I've got 7 categories, 2 different types of measures. So you actually can make it even more flexible, but with less space, and instead of only seeing 2 objects per category or per question, I've now got 7 or 8 in my visual. So just a strategy for a bit of space. You know, people can't answer more than one question at once, as much as they think they want to be able to see it. The only thing you can't do is you can't compare across visuals with this strategy, but how it was before, you couldn't really do that anyway. So this is definitely in my view, this is an enhancement. Okay, so those are really the 3 things we can do, or 3 of the things. There are multiple other things we can do for space saving or maximizing the space that we use and how we add value with space. All right, then we move on to color. Color is a very difficult topic. A couple of years ago, I did a talk at SQL Bits about using color in reports. It was an entire 1-hour session. So obviously, we can't really do too much in a 20-minute session where it's just a topic. But there are a couple of strategies with color. The one is to use color to convey meaning. Now, this is when you have a audience very familiar with the concept. If I were to put those two colors on stage, what am I talking about? Most likely, I'm talking about male versus female, boys versus girls. Pink and blue, if you put that on a stage, or on a presentation, people almost intuitively know what you're talking about. If you're American and you see blue versus red on a report, you're very likely to know that I'm talking about Democrats and Republicans. So there are these inherent color associations that we can always use. Another common one, obviously, is red, green, and yellow in terms of a traffic light, or in terms of good, yes, no, sort of type of questions. So you can use color in that way. The second one is you can use color to highlight points. So if I've got a specific category that I want to make stand out on a report, I would definitely put everything into a gray or a neutral color and have that specific category, that specific item highlighted. And you can obviously use color to show continuous data. So if you've got multiple charts or whatever, not only are you multiple lines in a chart, sorry, not only are you using the color to show the category, but you're also using the color to make it easier for the user to track along a continuous data set. And there's three main color strategies. We have something called qualitative, which means that red is good, green is good, red is bad. We've got something called sequential, where color gets darker as a value gets higher, or we've got divergent, where you've got sort of a color in the middle, and the further away you get from the color, the further you are to certain extremes. Problems with color, very difficult. As I said, there are many pitfalls to color, particularly with accessibility, with color blindness, with people misrepresenting different things mean different things in different cultures, different colors mean different things. And then we also have accessibility concerns, and color blindness is the most obvious, but there are other ones, low vision, that we have to consider about, and it can be polarizing. So what I've done here is just three quick examples of color. I've basically got the same report. I've added in, So I've added in colors to talk about the different measures. So my 4 measures in my KPIs have different colors, and you'll see that I sort of represent that as well in my changing graph, which is now going to take an hour, which I don't have. But as I change the measure here, you see that graph on the side changes, so that I've associated the specific measure that I'm talking about here with a specific KPI on the report. I've also done that at the bottom here, which I hope you can see if I highlight it. No, go away. Okay, so at the bottom, sorry, PowerPoint in Power BI, not so good. Power BI in PowerPoint. I've got these average ratings in purple. They are actually data bars, so if the numbers weren't so close together, you would see them getting smaller. I've also got a rule here where anything under 2,000 ratings, sorry, I'm just going to sort of stand here and highlight because I can't use a mouse at the moment. Anything under 2,000 ratings is gray. Anything above that is in a shade of blue. And then here I have the whole sequential coloring, where the darker the color, the closer we are, or the higher it is in the ranking. So that intensity, there's various strategies you can use. Again, you need to, the thing is you can't use all of them. You shouldn't really use all of them at once. And you certainly shouldn't use color to represent categories and then use color to represent intensities in the same type of graph. You're not really going to be able to make that work, because there are only so many colors before you can't tell the difference between colors. So color, that's really some examples. We've got 2 more categories. They're pretty easy to go through, but I knew I shouldn't have tried to interact with Power BI in PowerPoint. And then I thought, what's the worst that could happen? Thanks, Rob. Rob is an experienced presenter. He knows it can always get worse. Let's see if I can, sorry. Also, kids, if you do presentations, don't try new features. Even if they're from Microsoft and you believe they'll be brilliant, they may release an update yesterday that does weird things to your presentation. No, it was yesterday. I thought, I can just take the updates. Okay, there we go. Okay, so 2 things here. Audience, very quickly. when considering the audience, basically what you're talking about is how you consider constructing your report so that the most important thing that the audience needs should be top left and the first thing that they see. And then the second way to handle that is sort of your hierarchy. So you usually put your most summarized data on top, your grouped or aggregated data in the middle, and your detail at the bottom. I will upload this slideshow because I'm going to run out of time if I don't. So I'm not going to talk through those points, sorry. But essentially what I've done here, I just want to highlight this. Oh, God. So your overall KPIs will be at top when the background visual fixes itself. The overall KPIs will be at the top. Your group data will be in the middle of your report, and your detail or tables will be at the bottom of your report. That's essentially the standard way to focus data in a report, and it's the most common strategy. And then the last thing you can do, and here, this is not really, I'm not going to even give you any advice about what the finishing touches are, but sometimes you want to do then things like adding in images, adding in icons, putting in a title, which I always suggest, and you may have noticed that that report didn't have a title. It'll get one right now. And it does things like satisfies marketing, and it elevates your user experience. So the problem with this one doesn't really add any value to your report. It adds beauty or features. So I'm just going to show you what I did as an example with this report, and I really wanted to make it stock. So I tried to make it as different as possible, but I took that same report almost exactly the way it was before, and I added in a gradient background. I added in gradients in PowerPoint. I did various other things, and just it looks a bit different. Someone may think this is what they want for their corporate thing. I wouldn't particularly choose a report like this, but I kind of wanted to show you the value of adding some different touches. And that, in 20 minutes and a couple of seconds, is what I wanted to talk to you. I apologize for the demo gods. I didn't sacrifice enough humans this morning, so they didn't really cooperate. But yeah, if you want to hit me up on Twitter, I love talking to people on Twitter, so you're welcome to catch me at James McGee MSBI. You're welcome to email me, and as I say, this will be up on my website tonight. Probably after the party, zimbabwe.co.za. And please, that is the feedback link. Please feedback, and you're all welcome to say that my demos were terrible. Thank you very much.